What's going on, guys? How to be back. Generation 4 Pokemon Pearl, Diamond, and Platinum came out at an odd time in my life. I was just starting junior high life, and it led to a weird shift in my social life since any of my friends I had that was into these kind of games were put in a different class from myself. Besides them, I had no other consistent means of getting information on new games besides going to Walmart and checking the shelves or those trial games you can play with the screens way up above the cases. Caused some fun whiplash. Don't know why they got rid of that. Anyways, my point is that I didn't even realize the game came out when it did until quite a while later. While I was participating in band class, being a trombone player, we got eventually placed near the back of the room we were in, which meant that I got to be closer to the percussion section, meaning when that finally got going, I had a good friend of mine rejoin my class. He would sometimes bring his DS to class with his game of choice at the time to play, while the percussions would take turn on who was taking the lead, that being Pokemon Diamond. And he would typically sit next to me and let me watch him play, or sometimes let me take over when the rare occasion came that he had to do stuff. That was my first experience with it, and I just knew by looking at the game that things were massively improved, and I vowed to get my own DS and my own copy of the game as soon as possible. That Christmas, my parents ended up getting me a Nintendo DS Lite and two games, Super Mario 64 DS and Texas Hold'em Poker. Ha! Thought I was going to say Pokemon, huh? Ha! Joke's on you and me. Game didn't even last long anyways. Dog ended up eating it. I would eventually save up enough to get my own copy of Pokemon Pearl, vowing in the process that I'd never let another main series Pokemon game escape my attention, making this the last game in the series I missed the game day one. But enough of that sad trip to the past. Let's dive into this generation of Pokemon with Gen 4 Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, and their remakes Heart Gold and Soul Silver. So, Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum stars you playing as either Dawn or Lucas, living in the quiet town of Twinleaf Town. After watching a report on a supposed red Gyarados in the area, you decide to go visit your friend Barry. Upon literally running into you, you better have a hard noggin. He'll be doing that a lot. He says you're late and runs off, only to run back saying he forgot something. Also, he'll do that a lot. After getting the affairs in order, you both head out to Lake Verity to investigate. Upon reaching the lakefront, the two discover an elderly man and a younger person already there observing the area. Shortly thereafter, they leave, passing by the two, making little to no acknowledgement to them. As the two of you go in further, Barry notices a briefcase still in the tall grass. They decide to go retrieve it, but are unable to get out in time before a couple Starly attack them. In the confusion, the briefcase opens, revealing 3 Pokeballs containing Piplup, Turtwig, and Chimchar. Sidetracking, I don't know too many other people that like them, but man do I love Turtwigs. Torterra is such a cool final form, and has Earthquake right as it evolves, making it my favorite grass starter. That being said though, I do really enjoy all three starters in one way or another, my favorite reason being that it's probably the most balanced trio in competing against your rival Barry. What I mean by that is that Turtwig is weak to fire, but Torterra also becomes a ground type, giving him an advantage to Infernape. Infernape is a fighting type, giving him an advantage against Empoleon, and while Steel doesn't hold any benefit against Torterra, due to its penguin influence, Empoleon can learn flying type moves naturally, giving him a slight advantage. Despite that, fights with Barry can still get intense, but leave a sense of an even playing field at all times against him. More on that later. Just know, this is one of my favorite group of starters in the series. So, you defend yourself against the attack, and right then is when the younger person arrives to retrieve the briefcase. They get flustered when they see you and Barry with one of the Pokeballs, and runs off. You guys decide it would be best to give the Pokemon back. Just before getting back to the opening of Twin Leaf, the old man and the younger person are there eyeing you down. He checks your Pokemon and decides to leave them with you, coldly walking away afterwards. You go back home to your mom, who you tell about your day's events. She suggests you go to Sand Gem Town to thank him, stating that it was most likely the professor. You make your way across the route towards Sand Gem Town, where Barry is seen running out of the lab and heading onward into the rest of Sinnoh. Dawn/Lucas exits the lab, introducing themselves, and says the professor wants to meet you. You head in and he entrusts a Pokedex to you and says you should head out after Barry and try to do the Sinnoh Pokemon League. So you proceed to do just that. Catch every Pokemon you see, battle gym leaders in the ultimate test of skill, try and keep up with Barry at every turn, discover what Cyrus and the rest of Team Galactic are up to, and be the best, like no one ever was. So hot damn! Coming off the heels of Gen 3, Gen 4 Diamond and Pearl are both huge games, both in its overworld layout and the things you do in the world, and there's a huge diverse array of areas you can explore for once. Gen 3 gave you volcanoes and deserts, but this one also has an entire snowy region and some marshlands. It also has a decent ocean to explore, but nothing like the expansive one in Generation 3, but it's certainly not as overwhelming. So that's an early look at the land of Sinnoh, a great place to try and protect you must, because this game's villainous team, Team Galactic, are some of the most formidable teams in the entire series. And I don't entirely mean in battle, although granted they do have some tough fights, especially with some of the commanders. But this team actually manages to not just talk a big game, but actually go through with some of it. They kidnap a scientist in the Valley Windworks facility long enough that he reeks a body odor, attempt a hostage situation in Eterna City, kidnap and tortures the 3 lake spirits to make the red chain to summon the legendary Pokemon, and what I think is worst of all, blows up Lake Valor to get the lake spirit there, displacing the Pokemon living there, and go about kicking and taunting the helpless Magikarp as they're left there to just flop around, all in the name of Cyrus and his goals. Now, the thing with Cyrus, while I don't think he's the best team leader, he is leagues better than Generation 3's leaders, and is definitely one of the better ones. He led a team to commit so many atrocities, like I just mentioned, but even he himself, when he shows up in scenes, he's a short-spoken but determined individual with goals of reshaping reality in his image. He gets a little over the top when it comes to Platinum, but every encounter with him, whether you're fighting him or not, is always such an intense experience with him, surprising enough just to be on a DS of all things. In comparison, your encounters with your rival, Barry, are just as entertaining on a different level. Now, I enjoyed Blue, really liked Silver, and although Gen 3's rivals were trash, Barry himself has got to be one of the best rivals, even considering future prospects. He's got that sort of cocky self-confidence that Blue has, but undergoes some decent character development like Silver, as there are times when you work together to accomplish different goals, or sometimes the same one. And it's a good thing too that he's an ally, because fights with Barry can be tough. The dude knows how to assemble a decent team, and I've always enjoyed my fights against him. Like with Silver, the game even shows his change in character, but rather than doing it with the Pokemon on his team, Barry starts the game running around like he's on an emulator cranked to ×4 speed, and bumping into you every time you meet. but by the end of the game, he moves around like a normal sprite and has a speech of a more calm and considerate individual. There are some reasons behind it too, and Platinum has a hilarious revelation for him which makes his charm stand out more. And what's cool is that he isn't even the only recurring character. Besides Oak appearing a handful of times throughout the first two gens, and Lance and Steven in their respective games, characters don't really show up after meeting them. However, Don Lucas appear a lot, with Professor Rowan actually doing some field work himself, stepping outside of his lab and letting you run into him every now and again. This game's champion, spoiler, Cynthia, also appears every now and again, helping the plot move along. And even your own mother takes a trip out of the house to supply you with a suit for the returning Pokemon competitions. It's not a lot, I can hear you say, but Pokemon's never dabbled into things like that before, so it was a nice change of pace having a thicker plot and characters surrounding your base avatar. Now, as for the Pokemon presented in this generation, there wasn't a lot brand new, but hot damn, they went back and added a bunch of new evolutions to previous Pokemon, all of which look awesome. Magmortar, Electivire, Gallade, Gliscor, and even more. The slight downside though is that, at least in their introductory game, it's either extremely difficult to acquire their new evolutions or not accessible at all within the main story, which is a slight bummer if you've taken an initial shine to them. And with some of these Pokemon, you can even import some of them from your GBA games, as long as you have a DS with a GBA slot, of course. It can only be done in the post-game, but it's still a really cool feature to have. Now, in terms of combat, not much has changed in the grand scheme of things compared to Gen 3's changes, but there is one thing that has happened that blew my mind and got me even more excited for its combat. Moves are now properly differentiated by being either physical or special based on the move itself rather than its typing. This alone, despite literally being a little symbol tucked away in the stat screen, created a whole new dichotomy to Pokemon's combat. Now in proper fashion, you can have a high attack Gyarados with Waterfall and not be hampered by its typing. Newcomer Lucario can now have a special fighting type move in Aura Sphere and actually have it make sense with the character. It made combat both simpler but way more intricate at the same time. Except for maybe some tweaks to moves later on, this generation had what I felt to be the definitive battle system, giving you plenty of options to work with in the main game. That aside, like I said, combat remained relatively unchanged. Other mechanics in the game involve Pokemon animations and time of day returning from Generation 2, and thank God for the latter. The animations don't look too good here, at least in Pearl, Diamond, Platinum, although Platinum gives gym leaders animations as well, which I kinda liked. Helps liven up the world even more. Time of day is self-explanatory though, but it's still always a welcome thing to have. Also introduced are the Pokemon Super Contest and the Underground. Let's knock this one out of the way real fast. I hardly ever got involved with the Super Contests. I could never quite figure out the best ways to use the items on the dress-up segment, and when I think I did a really awesome design, it turned out to just be poop in the judge's eyes, and the rest I just never really partook in. The Underground, however, is a whole different beast. After clearing Eterna City, you can go to the Underground Explorers Club-based thing and get an Explorer's Kit. After a few tutorial quests, you are free to explore to your heart's content, and is the best location to acquire many different stone-based items. By keeping an eye on the map screen, looking for little twinkles on it, you can find a dig spot and play a little digging minigame, trying your best to dig up all the items in that given panel before it collapses from chipping at it too much. You can find things like shards and heart crystals to teach new moves, an assortment of fossils, and evolution stones, probably one of the best methods to get some early on if you're dedicated enough. There's also a multiplayer function to the Underground in that you can create bases and use an assortment of items to play a sort of capture the flag-esque game. Again, I never dabbled too much in it. Some of the trap-based items you can run into on your own at random sometimes, but I never really had anyone to play with at the time. But now that we've gotten into multiplayer, let's talk online functions. Since the DS can connect wireless to the internet, a new feature was added in the Global Trade Station, or GTS. The GTS allows you to trade Pokemon with anyone, anywhere, at any time. Now, when I first discovered this feature, I thought it was only with Pokemon you've seen in your Pokedex. Fortunately, that isn't the case. As long as you know how to spell the name of the Pokemon you're searching for, you could type it in and see the kind of things that people are looking for. Most things people were looking for at the time was a load of bull, but for the ones that actually had a sensible trade going, it made the GTS an integral part of completing the decks, and thusly made it possible to actually accomplish it mostly within your own volition. You can also use this feature to battle people online, but like I've said before, I've never been much into battling real-life opponents. Now, something I've kind of glossed over in the last few generations is the music, largely because it wasn't all that good to me. Not bad, mind you, I wouldn't say Pokemon has bad music, but Generation 4 really blows it out of the water. I think it's mostly due to the advanced hardware allowing for a more varied array of instruments to be used. That leads to some lovely little melodies along with many of the routes, as well as some bumping battle music, culminating into what I feel is one of the best gym leader battle music, some of my favorite villain battle themes, and what might just be everyone's favorite of all, Cynthia's champion theme. So you stop Cyrus and Team Galactic, get all 8 gym badges, and defeat Cynthia in the Elite Four. What's next? Well, as you restart the game, you're told that Barry is waiting at Snow Point City, as there is a boat waiting there that will take you to the Battle Zone, a new area that you were unable to explore previously. In the Battle Zone, there are an assortment of new areas to explore, trainers to fight, and the Battle Zone has the Battle Tower, and even a small mini plot line involving the legendary Pokemon Heatran and some disbanded members of Team Galactic. Despite some uninspiring names for the separate living areas, having this new land alone makes this leagues better than Generation 3's postgame. They both have special Pokemon to capture afterwards as well, but even the smallest of plot lines can help breathe a final breath of enjoyment out of the game as you wind down your time with it. Before moving on, I do want to preface real fast. I haven't played Platinum personally. I've seen playthroughs of its unique parts and can comfortably say that it makes Cyrus way more loony, and that the Distortion world is probably one of the coolest and also one of the most uninteresting places to explore at the same time, as there's nothing to do aside from plot-based stuff. But anywho, that's Generation 4, Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. But before concluding here, let's take a quick peek at the remakes of this generation, Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver. So, changes to these games include your lead Pokemon following around. Game Freak, bring this back. It's not much, but it's so cool to have. Heavy emphasis on using the lower screen for literally everything. They wanted players to use one hand to move, and the other to use the bottom screen for like every button imaginable. I didn't hate it, but found it largely unnecessary. An external accessory in the Pokewalker was added to allow you to travel with one of your Pokemon outside of the DS to train and even catch new Pokemon. Depending on your dedication towards it, it could break the early game wide open, as you can find some Pokemon with some highly desirable typings or moves. The Pokeathlon, located right next to the National Park, an assortment of mini-games to play that can score you some items that I did play a lot of, as some of these games were actually kind of fun. The main story combined the base plotline of Gold and Silver with the revamped story of Crystal, by having Yucine and Suicune being a partial focus of the plot throughout, and a brand new route just east of Cyanwood, with the end of it hosting a brand new safari zone to utilize other than just relying on the national park. So yeah, there's really not much I can say that's truly bad about Generation 4. It hits its key point right on the head and made for a truly enjoyable experience. Enough so that I'd say that so far it'd probably be my second favorite generation out of them all. It is just so much fun, and one that I always take the time to go back and replay through. Now, hurry up and make my remake already. The speculation around the internet is killing me. But anywho, thanks all so much for watching. If you like what you saw, maybe check out my other Pokemon videos I've done. And next time we meet, we take a look at Generation 5 Pokemon Black and White and their sequels. Until then, I'll see you guys later.